Well, hello everyone. This is Jessie Bowen, and welcome to the Power to Live Your Vision podcast. I have so many podcasts going on. I got to keep them straight here, but
Yeah.
this is the Power to Live Your Vision podcast. I'm here with Coach Nathan Ray. Hey, sir, how you
Hey.
doing?
Oh, happy, radiant, free, shining bright like diamonds. Excited to get after it. I hope you are.
Better and better, trying to make the world a better place.
Yeah, we're doing it together right here on the podcast.
Yes,
Uh,
sir. We got our mantra going and we're just
Yeah.
making it happen. Everyone, this is called the power to live your vision. And we decided at the beginning part of the year to start this back up. We had it going on a couple of years ago. So we just started this back up. And that's what it's really about. It's really about the power to be able to live your vision. It's a motivational podcast. And again, Coach Ray, he is a goal coach and works with people to help to empower their lives. And this is a part, he's a martial artist too, helping to
Yeah.
empower some people's lives. And so, like I said, I'm a coach, a certified coach, mental performance coach. So we decided just to put some things together and give to the world this year. We hope it's a benefit. It's sponsored by Elite Publications. Everyone has a story. You just have to get it out. Visit our website, www.elitepublications.org. Well, sir, this is our special show today. This
Yeah.
past week we lost a great idol, hero, legend, the man who had the legacy and all, in Grandmaster Chuck Norris, and it was really impacted a lot of people, and a lot of folks have been reflecting on his legacy, on how his legacy in really had an effect on their lives, and that's pretty amazing with that.
Yeah.
So let's even kick that off, and we're going to talk about it ourselves. So how do you feel that Grandmaster Chuck Norris impact your life? You're now 10th degree black belt, studying the martial arts, going on close to 50 years. And
Yeah.
we were back in the days of good guys wear black.
That's
So
right.
how did he impact your life?
Well, you hit it on the head. We had black belt theater on Saturday afternoons, and then next thing you know, like you just mentioned, here comes this man flying, doing a flying sidekick through a windshield on a car charging at him. I said, "Oh snap! I don't know what that is, but I need to know more about that." That was Good Guys Wear Black, and Chuck Norris, the legend of Chuck Norris, was what had begun. Being in film already with Bruce Lee, and being in his films. And the cool thing is that like you just said, the influence and the impact. Sometimes we lose a person, and then we reflect. Of course, it'd be better if we reflect while they're alive, but the loss of Grandmaster Norris has definitely caused a lot of reflection in a lot of people. So when I look back on it, I say, wow, you can have an impact on somebody's life and never have met them. We may be having an impact on somebody's life, changing their life right now, just from them watching the podcast, and not necessarily ever meet them personally. And that is a powerful thing, because we talk about his film, which you mentioned, and as a boy, that just solidified my dream. That just made my dream expand. And being able to watch it over and over and get the repetition of it. I know he played in the other film where he's a ninja, and so it ignited my imagination as a young martial artist and as a human being, because Chuck Norris, he was more than just a kick punch person. He did a lot of charity work. He did a lot of things in the community. So he was constantly, and I don't know Mr. Norris personally. I never met him personally. However, just at a distance, looking at someone set that example was was amazing. And not to mention the publications, and this goes back to something you and I speak about often, which is publishing is one of the most powerful influencers in the world, obviously, because when we are touched by books and publications, that can last lifetimes, and that can go from our journey into our personal legacy. So, I mean, there's so much that we get to unpack today, but we would need a whole season of shows to truly unpack it all. But at least we're going to give it a run today, a little bit of it.
Well, I met Grandmaster Norris in 1979.
Okay.
Yes. And that was in Virginia Beach. And I was a brown belt, and that was about a year before I opened up my school. I had made black belt. And I still remember that day. I remember who I was with, the people around me. I remember, he had a photo shoot going on. I went over and took a photograph with him, and I didn't realize the impact that would have of taking that photo. And here I still have that photo. Here it is 50 years later, 48 years later, somewhere in there. And I still have the photo of Grandmaster Norris and myself. And, I'm shaking hands with him. So I'm asking him this question. I'm always trying to find out, how can I be better? So, what can I do? And the simple answer was show up. Show up, show up for the next class, and then show up for the next class. But my initial impact was the very first day that I enrolled in a martial arts school, Karate International. And I never seen a martial arts magazine. And I stopped by a convenience store, and I just received my uniform, and I'm really excited. And as I'm walking out this convenience store, I look over towards my right, and the word karate catches my eye, and it was a magazine. And that magazine was Karate Illustrated. And so I went over and I picked it up. And when I opened the magazine up, there was a picture of Grandmaster Norris with his foot up in a chair. A little old lady was him and his gi bottom. And so it was an advertisement about a karate uniform. And he had this giant trophy cup sitting on his thigh. And I remember at that moment, not 6 years later, not 4 days later, not even 24 hours later, I knew at that moment I wanted to be a karate champion. I knew at that moment. That was the impact of looking at Chuck Norris and seeing this trophy cup, and it really inspired my life. And that's the reason why, books, magazine, making yourself knowledgeable about the people who influence and that can empower your life. Maybe there's someone that you've read about out there that has impacted your life, who's been that person that you may not even know the person, but has impacted your life, because Grandmaster Norris, the things that, through his Kickstart program and other things, it was all about leadership, discipline, and inspiration. And, that's what it's really about. And the lives that he has touched and his organization has touched has been totally amazing. And then I had this chance back in 2020 to actually publish a book with him. And this was really a big highlight. It was a tribute to Grandmaster Norris. In the title.
Lift it up just a little bit more, sir.
Let me get
lift it up a little bit.
So I can, sure. Are you able to see that? There you go.
Yes, sir. Yeah, right there is good.
There you go. Yeah. So the title of the book here is it's Giving Back for a Lifetime. And if you can see this book, this is probably the largest or the thickest book that we've actually published. And in here, it has 520 pages. So we have about 200 martial artists that actually have put their bios as a part of this book as this tribute. And, back in 2020, we were still, in COVID. So we did the program as an online tribute. It was our first online event that we actually did. And in fact, the John Chung, world champion John Chung was actually hosted the event. He was the host of the event. And so, what we're doing, we're going to give everyone a chance. If you want to get a legacy copy of the book, then we're going to give you that 2-hour presentation. And there you can see the people who were nominated and who were inducted into the Who's Who in the martial arts.
Oh,
who
that's
those
great.
people were that was recognized along with Grandmaster Chuck Norris. That was a very powerful event. So that we're going to make that available. So we're going to be launching a special showing on Friday and Saturday. And that Friday and Saturday is going to be on Roku TV. So on our Roku channel, there's the World Elite Publications Worldwide TV. So you can go to your Roku apps and add that app to your Roku TV. And so it's going to be there.
That's great. That's going to be exciting.
Yes, we also have the download. And so when someone makes a purchase of the book, and so the revenue or fees from the book, is going to be split with the Kickstart program, and it's going to be split with the AMAA Future Leaders Program, which are both nonprofit organizations to promote college scholarships and to enhance the martial arts.
Oh, so, wow, that's powerful. Yeah,
it's really a journey to go back and reflect, on those experiences.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, I mean, having the opportunity to actually meet the man, and like you said, in those moments, sometimes we don't realize how huge those moments are until sometime later, but the impact, like you mentioned, when you saw it, you knew right in that moment. And Dan Coyle, who is written several books, and he speaks about that moment as something called ignition. It's like that moment when the spark happens. Mm-hmm. And once the spark happens, it's a done deal, and you're just walking out the rest of it. And so that's a great moment that you shared right there. I know, and this goes back again to what we were talking about, the power of publications and publishing, honoring Grandmaster Norris with the book, and now it's still being able to be a part of his legacy to give back in his honor to his organization. That's really big. So wow, that's exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing the fruits of that, and seeing how it's still one man's journey becomes not just one man's journey. It touches so many others that the legacy keeps expanding even beyond your lifetime. And I think that's what we're going to see a lot of now, people getting in touch, because he had a strong philosophy. It wasn't just about martial arts, but it was about leadership, discipline, mm-hmm. and being an inspiring figure for others. So that's awesome.
So, we asked the question, what is legacy really? And, when we define legacy, we have to think about the impact on people, values passed down, lives changed. So, that's three things to think about when we begin to think about legacy, or to think about what your legacy is. How are you impacting school? Our next magazine coming out here in just a few weeks, that's what it's called. It's called Recognizing Martial Arts Schools That Are Making an Impact. So impact on people, when you have this relationship with someone as a teacher, how are you impacting their lives? What are those moments? And then we look at what is the value that you are passing down. And then you have, the lives change. So that's why we're in the martial artists, we're in this great place, and the more people that we enroll in our schools, the more people, the lives we change, whether that be our students, their parents, or anyone that comes in contact with us, then we are leaving that legacy, and that's what it is. So when you're thinking about building your legacy, then what are you doing to have an impact on people? What
Well,
value are you passing down, and how's that value changing their lives?
Well, I mean, it's an awesome thing to have people come back to you after years of teaching. They might have been young people in the school and they're doing great things in their personal lives. They're helping the community. They're living great lives. And they come back and say, "Hey, I remember when you said X, Y, and Z. I remember when I was in class and this happened and it helped me for the rest. It's helped me my whole life." And much like when Mr. Norris shared with you, hey, very simple but powerful statement. Keep showing up.
Hmm.
That seed is so powerful that you still remember it to this day. And I'm sure you probably passed on. I know you shared it with me and been an inspiration for me and passed on similar guidance. I won't say it a different. I'll say guidance, because those moments are definitely life changing. I really knew that Chuck Norris he had transcended a lot of things in a lot of ways. When I was in Belgium, I was at training with my Aikido teacher in Belgium, and it was a live-in program. So we stayed there with him at the dojo, and we were there for a few weeks. And so at lunchtime, what they call is uchideshi, the students who are there training, we were all having lunch. We would make our lunch and eat together. And then they started telling Chuck Norris jokes. And these are people from different. I mean, they're not from the U.S. This is in Belgium, but they're people from all over Europe, and and I didn't even know about all these Chuck Norris jokes, and they're positive. It's not it's all positive
Right.
things. It's about the legend of Mr. Norris, and then and in hearing about his passing, they even said, they said Saint Peter has retired, so God asked Mr. Norris, Grandmaster Norris, to come on up and to take charge of things and be in charge of the pearly gates. So even until now, you know that that humor, but it's really was in total respect. And so this again, I was there and just seeing these people from all over the world who honored him, even in humor and laughter about his legend. And but that is good for all of us as martial artists, those that are, and whether you're a martial artist or not, it's good for us as a people. However, but it's great as a martial artist because it ascribes a level of, when you're looking at what black belt means. In our
Right.
school, we have black belt leadership. We have our Black Belt Club, our leadership program, our character development program, and it's really personal development.
Hmm.
And those are the things that are the real. I mean, the kick and punch are great, and we get that. However, having a true personal development program, being able to start off at 2, 3 years old, 4 years old doing martial arts, and have that in your back pocket. And Mr. Norris was one of the people who was a proponent of that level of excellence as being a black belt, and he represented that to the world, that hey, there's something that's special about this thing called black belt. You didn't might not know exactly what it is, but you just knew it was equated to excellence.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I meet people that get it confused.
Oh yeah.
And especially, when you're interviewing people for them to do their biography, and they
Huh.
won a few trophies, and they
Hmm.
think that they're a legend, and I don't even know who they are. you know, I won 200
Yeah.
trophies. Don't you know who I am? No, I don't know who you are. No, I have
Yeah.
no
There's
out.
more to that equation, right?
Yeah, you're going, and well, I'm famous. I'm not paying to be in a magazine. I'm going, and remind me again, who are you? But see, but legacy is not a title, nor is it a trophy. It is who you helped. So how many people are you helping? So again, who are you helping? Who are you inspiring? And then what continues after you? What do you do that you've created? You've gone. Time is up. What have you created that keeps going, or is it that it stops that day and there's no more? I drive by homes. I live in the rural area, and I'll drive by homes that's falling down, and they used to be beautiful, and people used to live there, but nobody lives there anymore. Nobody's taking care of it, so the house is falling down, and there's no legacy. And then some people may have legacy, but some people don't want it. So what is
Right.
it of value that you have? What do you continue? Grandmaster Norris, his legacy is his martial arts schools, programs that he built through Kickstart, and his movies and media influences, his personal discipline and philosophy. Legacy is built daily, not at the end of your life. So when we think
Right.
about
It's too late.
legacy, don't
Yeah.
think about, okay, I'm dying or I died. No. Legacy is what you're doing every day. What are you doing every day? That's how you build legacy. It's not the end of your life. So today, look at your legacy and what are you doing to build your legacy? What are you creating? Who are you teaching? What are you doing to be able to build your legacy? So remember that point, that
Yeah.
legacy is built daily, not at the end of your life. So,
That's a
don't
that's
get
a
it
great
wrong.
that's a great reframe so that we can look at that properly. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Because you wait until the end, you're too late.
Yeah, it's over. Wish I could have done it when I could have. It's
Right.
over. It's over.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's sharing information. See, now you share that information with your children. Share how you grew up. Share who their family is. Share that because now that is something that is passed on. They have that knowledge. That's the whole thing about in the martial arts. We talk about lineage. Where did you come from? You
Right.
know,
Right. Right.
okay, who's your teacher? Well, who's your teacher's teacher? And that's important. You can take rank or self promote yourself, but when someone says, well, who's your teacher's teacher, or
Right.
who's your teacher's teacher, can you connect that? Can you have something to say about that? So
Right.
knowledge is your legacy, knowledge about your own personal lineage, your family lineage, your martial arts lineage. And in fact, I was sharing with my wife, I think it must have been on Sunday, and we were talking about me, and she was telling me how proud she was of all the things I've done and all these things. And so I started to share with her my lineage. Who do I touch that impacted my life or impacted my training? And
Mm.
it really starts off with Joe Louis, and who I trained with, who's a world champion, and Mr. Wellendorf, the person I trained with, several other people in my Aikido study. And you see, and she's saying, goodness gracious, when are you going to write about this? I can't keep all this in my head. So I'm going, okay, I'm going to go ahead and write my memoir this year,
Oh,
so I
nice.
can tell that story,
Yeah.
because that's like she said, that's just too much for me to hold in my head. If someone asked me, so who was Jesse's teacher, or it's something, so no, you need to write this down. That's the reason why you want to publish your memoir or have a biography book written about your life, so you can share the accuracy of it. Because a lot of times people, well, they heard me say one thing, but then they add live, and so the whole thing changes.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, that's and it goes right back to the power of publishing and sharing the knowledge and having a means of sharing the knowledge. you want to make sure you're not letting fear and doubt and um, that being paralyzed, waiting to the quote unquote right time.
Right.
Now is the right time because we're not guaranteed anything beyond right now. So if we can jump into it and go into motion today, not today, right in this moment, the moment you have you might have a responsibility, but as soon as you wrap that up, go ahead and start writing down the outlines. Go ahead and start doing things. Why? Because our histories and what touches us can absolutely touch and help somebody else. So yeah, so I'm just and a lot of times you're in the mix and you don't even really think about what's happening, but that magazine, I'm sure you're very thankful that whoever took time to publish that magazine took the time to publish that because of the effect that it had. I can think back to magazines that affected me. I remember I'd come back from a leadership retreat and I arrived back home and I had a magazine, martial arts magazine waiting for me. And in there, it talked about this event in Las Vegas. Master Ozawa had a big tournament and he had all the heroes, Fumio Demura, and all these ones that I heard of and some that I didn't. And they were going to be in one place in Las Vegas, have a seminar, tournament. And in that moment, I told my mother, I said, I'm going to Las Vegas on such and such. She said, "What? What are you talking about?" But because of that,
I call that little Nate.
little Nate, yeah, doing his thing, doing his thing. So I wound up going, and that started a domino effect, a chain event. Now that I look back on it, there was a domino effect, and I made connections. I wound up on the U.S. team. I competed at 3 world championships. I was in Dubai, Venezuela, Okinawa, and I was in these places with people I saw in books and videos who were my heroes. But that magazine publication, if I had not read it, I, I'd be doing something very different now, yeah, in a different
Mhm.
way now.
Right.
So, that's the power. But I didn't think about it until you and I started talking, and you're publishing, and I'm now it's starting to click, and I'm going, man, look at the power in publishing and how we can change lives. So, yeah, we need to definitely, as you always say, everyone has a story to tell. You just got to tell it, right?
Well,
So,
you got to get it
yeah,
out. You have to
yeah, get it
be able to
out.
share it. And as we were saying, everyone, be looking out because this show is going to be a book. So we're the power to live your vision. We're going to release this in August, a new book coming out, all about the power to live your vision. And
Yeah.
things we've talked about on the show and different things like that. Remember, this program is sponsored by Elite Publications. Everyone has a story. You need to get it out. So contact us. Let us help you tell your story and tell it the right way.
Well, I
We're getting
like
ready.
what you say. You're the easy button
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it can be overwhelming in your mind, but if you got someone who can guide you and show you the way through, it makes life a whole lot easier. So to have a coach or a mentor or someone that can guide you along, and that's what Elite Publication provides. And so yeah, you can't beat that.
So one of the last things we're going to really chat about today, and everyone, please feel free. You can message me or Nathan through our Facebook. You can email me at info@elitepublications.org. Let me know if you have questions. Then let me know. We work on solutions. We work on everything from how you grow your business to how you grow your life, how you
Yeah.
impact. I've written over 60 books on personal development training, so a lot of knowledge there. You can go to Amazon and just Google my name and Jessie Bowen. That's Jessie, and all my stuff will come up, and just check it out and learn
Yeah.
how to empower yourself. So when we break down, what this really means, that message that Grandmaster Norris gave me is he said, keep working, show up every day. and right after that, I mean, I was already teaching. I started my teaching when I was a grain belt teaching classes, and I was blessed to be able to train with my instructor one-on-one. And I knew about as much as a brown belt when I was a grain belt. So I started teaching when I was a grain belt. And so that kept me showing up. It put me in activity in that place. I wasn't just taking classes, I was a part of that class. And that consistency of showing up every day for class, what it was doing, it was disciplining and building my destiny by doing that, showing up every day. I never missed a day out of martial arts. And, in this 50-year span, I've always been connected to the martial arts, physically, mentally, emotionally, implementing, what the power of the martial arts is. And again, through the books and
Right.
things we're doing, we are really trying to build that legacy. But showing up, you don't have to, sometimes you don't feel like showing up. And that's some of the most important times you show up. The times you feel like you don't want to show up. That's a good test for showing up without, an immediate result. You show up and when am I going to go for that belt test? Never ask your teacher when you're testing. Your teacher will tell you when it's time for you to test. Showing up, through adversity, when things are tough, you still show up. You fight. You learn to fight through that. So there's so many things that you can do to build your legacy and determine how do you impact someone's life. What message could you give me right now that could impact my life? What message can I give you right now? What type of situation are you going through that someone has already been there, done that? The young lady who works for me, I'm in North Carolina, but she's in the Philippines. And so, there's a 12-hour difference there. So it's night there. It's 1:45 in the evening where she is. And of course, it's in the afternoon here. I'm on Eastern time. But you see, the thing with this is that, I really have a lot of respect for, you keep showing up because you want something bigger in life. And I try to, say something to inspire her every day.
Oh,
And
that's great.
I'll go back and ask her, what did you learn today?
Right.
So it's always like a test. So what did you learn today? So she
Yeah.
can tell me what she learned from the experience of working with me today. What did you learn, from that?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, and then there you go, pouring back into others, continuing that legacy. There's no small continuation. There's just the continuation because small things become big things. That blueprint that's in the acorn suddenly becomes the oak tree. So you never know when you plant a seed how it's gonna come up, which is awesome. And that's why we thank Grandmaster Norris for stepping out there and just doing his thing and being who he is and was and also his family. Just want to give a shout out to his family and because at the end of the day he was a husband, he was a father, he was a grandfather, and for us he's larger than life and he's this big figure in our minds. But a family lost a head of their household, and so we definitely want to send out love and positive energy to the Norris family and thank them because no one becomes successful by themselves. It's not an individual thing. There's a lot of touch points. So again, thank you to the Norris family and all of those who supported Mr. Norris for him to be able to be for us who he was.
Well, you're exactly right. And everyone, remember, this is the Elite Publications sponsored podcast. Visit our website, www.elitepublications.org. You've been thinking about writing a book? Well, hey, this is the best time ever to actually engage in a book project. So you can reach out to us and we will help you get started on how you can become a published author, go to our websites, which is www.elitepublications.org, to find out about some of my other books that we do. Then you can go to Amazon. That's the easy button of going there. We're coming up in Vegas, so we're still doing nominations for our Las Vegas event and for the book number 13 of the AMAA martial arts book. This is the legacy biography book. Well, everyone, be blessed. And any last words from you, Coach?
No, just hey, it's just stay energized, and everyone stay after it. You know how to find us, as Hanchi Bowen has just shared. So we look forward to interacting with you and hearing more about what you would like us to discuss. We want to make sure that our content is relevant to you.
All right, everyone, be blessed. And hey, we'll see you next week. Remember, this is the Power to Live Your Vision podcast.